All right, we're here in Barcelona at the Cannabis 2019. We're actually in the city right now at the W Hotel. We're here with Callie Blackwell, who has practiced a very deep level of civil disobedience in order to, I guess maybe originally give her son a higher quality of life, but also to actually extend his life and bring him out of a near-death experience. So, Callie, I'll leave it up to you to tell the viewers here on Bubble Man's World how this all transpired.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm Callie Blackwell. I'm a UK activist, and I got into cannabis because in 2010 my son was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and then 2 years later he was diagnosed with a much rarer form of cancer called Langerhans cell sarcoma. This left him to be the only person in the world to have the two cancers together. And because there was no protocol for him, doctors decided to give him a bone marrow transplant. Now, unfortunately, Darrin had 4 bone marrow transplants in 10 months because each one subsequently failed. 2 from the donor, 1 from himself, and then the last and final bone marrow transplant was his own cells. Darrin had been through radiotherapy, 4 years of radiotherapy, chemotherapy. So because there was no protocol, their words were, we will give him everything we can without killing him. So he had adult doses of everything. And then 3 days after he had his final transplant, he trapped his fingers down the side of his hospital bed and picked up 2 catastrophic infections in his hand. Now, with the brand new bone marrow trying to kick in, and it usually happens within 21, 23 days, but it was just struggling far too much with these catastrophic infections. He also had one in his mouth as well, which was a kind of portion of his tongue. So he was in a really bad way. And they told us that nobody has ever engrafted with a bone marrow transplant after 50 days. If it hasn't happened by 50 days, it's not happening. There's nothing there. There's no chance. So day 46 came. We'd obviously had many, many conversations running up to this saying, we've only got one chance left. So we knew it was coming. But on December the 8th, 2013, they said to us, okay, there is nothing else left now. You need to go to a hospice. When do you want to go? And I said, well, how long are we talking? I saw his antibiotics, and the only things that were keeping him alive, apparently, I saw them as a conscious life support machine, because Darrin was very aware and he was part of the conversation. I was always very open with him about every part of his journey, because it's his body, it's his life, right? So they told us that once they unhooked him from the antibiotics, we were looking at 3 days, a week at most. These infections would ravage him. When did we want to go? So December the 11th.
What a question.
Yeah. 3 days, when would you like to go?
Your child. Your child.
Yeah.
And you say he was in a bad way, but what about Mom? I mean, you were with him the entire time. You were basically experiencing this horror from the other side of the coin.
It was a roller coaster ride I never bought a ticket to. I couldn't get off. And I couldn't get off from July the 30th, 2010, I was on that roller coaster. And from that day, that very first day that they told me he had leukemia, I knew there was a chance we could lose him. So fast forward 4 years, and the roller coaster I'd been on, I'd already grieved him. We'd already accepted. It was very matter of fact, everything that happened at the time. And I think for me especially, it was a guarded way. If I'd have allowed my emotions to take over, nothing would have got done. It would have been 4 years of hell. I think, we don't have a choice of what happens to us, but how we react to it, that's everything, and we have that choice.
Yeah, that's everything. I mean, as a parent, I just picture, fetal position, corner.
It's how you are in your head, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
And at night when you're on your own and you cry. But I found writing very cathartic, and so because Darrin was so rare and he was the only one in the world to have these 2 cancers.
The only one in the world.
Hence why my book is called The Boy in 7 Billion, because he was the only one. I started a journal. I started writing and blogging about him in hope to find other people with the same cancer, And because of that, by the time we got to the hospice, he had 12, 13,000 followers on social media. So I was finding every day I was writing what was happening, and I was getting feedback from people saying, I'm too scared to check on Facebook in case he's dead, and it's like, but I found it very cathartic at the end of the day, but that was my therapy. So we went to the hospice, and Darrin didn't go within the first 3 days. This was December the 11th. He just turned 14 on December the 1st. So we went, and like I say, he didn't go anywhere. We had Christmas on December the 14th, then we had another Christmas on December the 25th, then we had New Year's, and Darrin was still here, but his organs were slowly shutting down. His stomach was producing a pint of bile every couple of hours. I was having to draw it out of a nasal gastric tube, because if I didn't, he'd vomit and the tube would come up, he'd have to have another one put down, and that's very traumatic. So, having to do all this, and it was just a case of waiting. And Darren started to get very anxious because he just wanted to go now. We sat down, we planned his funeral, we planned the venue, the hearse, the music, the costumes, because it was fancy dress. Darren had an idea it'd be fancy dress, and he picked some very tongue-in-cheek uniforms for many of his family members. He was certainly going to have the last laugh.
This was one of the things that really grabbed me about this story. Watching the interview with both of you sitting there and talking about planning his funeral, and just the positivity, in his eyes while he was explaining it, and the smiles, and it was just like, wow, like this is the thing that most of us on the planet are the most afraid of. People are terrified of death, and here you have a child, facing it. Yeah,
he couldn't wait. He was looking forward to it, and the planning of everything. He wrote a will. I mean, he only had a PlayStation and a couple of watches to give away, but he did it. And he also wrote letters to family members, picking them up on their behaviour and literally giving them advice and saying, look, if you carry on in this way, life is too short for this. He really did. It was incredible.
Quite something to have a child who's on his way out use that term. Life is too short.
Yeah,
it's like, wow, no denying that.
Exactly.
Best listen.
Yeah. Day 69 came around, and Darren was still alive and kicking, although be it he was, things were slowly shutting down, and the doctors were saying to me, this is the beginning now. This is what we see, and Darren started to get very anxious. Now, sort of 2-3 months previously, because Darren had the catastrophic infections in his hands. Basically, his fingers here down were black. They were necrotic. They were literally dying on the end of his hand. I've been crying about this morning, and immediately I thought, how did he feel? I'm crying over one day of this, and he was like this for a couple of months, literally feeling his hand die. So they wanted to amputate. I stopped them from amputating. I said, look, I don't want him maimed. He's dying. I want him to die pain-free. That's all. I don't want him to die on morphine, because he didn't want to die on morphine. He'd written a death plan saying that they'd taken everything, they're not taking his death, and he wanted to die compos mentis. He wanted to experience it. So I talked them into giving them a neurectomy here, where they took out the nerves. They actually cauterized the nerves so that he'd never feel his hand again. And they said, look, he'll never feel his hand, he'll never use it again. I said, I don't care, he's dying, it doesn't matter, But previously to that, I'd asked them he was on fentanyl, he was on morphine, nothing was touching this pain. So I had a look at alternative treatments for pain, and Betracan came up, which is a cannabis-based product available in Holland. And I'd read an article about a guy who got it on prescription, he'd gone over, and so I said, look, we can do this, I'm willing to go to Holland. No, it's not licensed for children, you can't have it. Okay? But it could work. It works very well on neuropathic pain. It works, but, So I thought, okay, well, I'll do it myself. Main ingredient, cannabis. I can get some of that. So I got some from a friend who I'd met. I made just a vegetable glycerine tincture with the plant, took the plant out, left with this honey kind of stuff. And I put it in a vape pen for him, because he was in hospital. And I thought, well, if he can have a vape pen, it might work on his... But it didn't. But he liked it. He felt quite cool sitting in the hospital room like this plume of smoke. He felt naughty. But
and he's how old at this time?
13, just turning 14. Okay. Yeah. So to me, it was like, well, I tried and failed. I didn't think any more of it. So fast forward now in the hospice, and it's day 69, and he's very anxious. So they start upping the morphine. And I'd asked for a bone marrow aspirate to be done, where they go into the main ball joint and they take out a piece of bone marrow, and then they can look at it and tell you exactly what's going on. It's much more accurate than a blood test. And when we'd gone there, his neutrophil count, which is the white blood cells that fight infection, were 0.0005, which is nothing. There's nothing there. So obviously he's still alive, so I said, look, please do another test. Tell me that there's definitely nothing there, because he's still here. He should be dead. So they did a test. Day 69, it came back nothing there. I remember the nurse coming to me with a piece of paper And I opened it and it said, "I'm so sorry, there's nothing." But both me and Darren had talked about this, and we both hoped that there was nothing, because as sad as it was, I didn't want to see him suffer anymore. And it gets to the point, when your dog is poorly and you have to make that decision, right? It's exactly the same thing, but
100%.
it's a child. And so we both looked at each other and went, good, it's just a matter of time now. It's the end of the prodding and the poking, end of the hospital visits, end of all that. But I say they started to give him morphine. He started to be in and out of consciousness, and this wasn't what he wanted. So they took the morphine away. He still very anxious about, well, when am I going to die? Thinking he's going to die, and he just didn't know when it was coming. So the sleeping tablets obviously made him very in and out again. So I just thought, well, as a mother, I have to give him what he wants. In his end of life, I can't do anything else for him other than ensure that he gets his very last dying wish. That's my only duty now, right? So I just thought, I saw this tincture and I thought, I'm just going to give him a load in his mouth. And it chills people out, right? Cannabis chills people out. So I gave him 5 ml under his tongue, sublingually, and within half an hour, his whole demeanour, I literally saw the relaxation. You could literally see it in him. Now, about half an hour after that, a nurse came to the door with a drug called cyclazine. Now, Darren had become incredibly addicted to this drug, so much so that he would scream at the nurses if he couldn't have it every few hours. And the way they had administered it to him had caused, it was almost like heroin. And he was incredibly addicted to this drug. And I saw the nurse come to the door and I thought, oh shit, what if I've now caused some contraindication and I can't tell them what I've given him, and oh God. And I didn't need to worry, because he turned to her and he said, I don't want it. What?
This is after 1 dose of cannabis?
Yeah, 5 ml of a tincture made with vegetable glycerin. It wasn't even FECO, it's just a hot extraction. And so I looked, and she said, what? And I said, go before he changes his mind. And she took it, and I said, you sure you don't want that? And he said, no, this is enough. He said, cannabis has given me everything that drug gave me, but without he was off his face when he was on that, and he said, no, I don't want it. Sleeping tablets stopped, the morphine stopped, everything. It was an exit drug straight away. And for me, it was already a miracle, because this was going to give him the death that he wanted, right? So Absolutely. For me, this was already a miracle. So I continued to give it to him, and over the following few days, he was really chill. We had a really he became very introspective as well. He became very quiet in himself and really started to think about things, and he really accepted death then, and he was really ready to go. There was no more panicking. 5 days later, we sat in the lounge, and Darren had a heavily bandaged hand. I mean, like Mickey Mouse he was, and they said, don't take those bandages off, because underneath it's down to the bone and it's surgically just, So he's there with his hand like this, and he was sleeping. He woke up, and he pulled his hand out, and the bandage in the middle was off. And Mum, look at my hand. And I said, what's wrong with your hand? And I didn't even register that there was a third bandage missing. And he said, my finger, look at my finger, look. And I went, oh my God. And it looked like mine, but much, much thinner at the top here, but with no nail. But it was pink, it was healed. There was, I was, what? No, hang on, this is wrong. Because you can't even create skin cells without a functioning bone marrow. You can't. So I said to the doctors, we need another test. And they were running around, yeah, we need to do a blood test. And I said, literally 5 days ago, there's nothing there. And they said, we need to do a test. And they did a blood test. An hour later, it came back, and his neutrophil count was 0.25.
Whoa.
So it had almost, I don't know how many, 100 times, I can't even work it out, but it was a lot. It was there anyway. And so the doctor was like, well, so what do you want us to do? And I was like, I don't know, what do you mean, what do I want you to do? And she said to Darren, well, usual protocol is now, if you get a temperature, we will give you antibiotics, what do you want us to do? And he says, I want you to leave me the fuck alone. Wow. And the doctor said, well, that's very flippant. And I said, 10 seconds ago he was dying. And now you're telling him he's not, and you're asking him what he wants to do as far as medical procedure. Come on, please, So it was there. So I continued to give, and his account just got more higher and higher and higher, and he officially engrafted on day 104.
Holy smokes. Yeah. 55 days after the maximum?
Yeah. Yeah.
Has anyone ever grafted at that time?
No, nobody after 50
He
days.
truly is the 1 in 7 billion boy.
Yeah, yeah. But unfortunately it got worse after that. His mental health deteriorated, just chronically, because now he didn't die. And the hospital was, because I couldn't tell anybody what I'd done, the hospital were now saying, well, we don't know if he's going to live, we don't know whether and they literally said in front of him, well, he could drop down dead next week, we don't know. So this limbo, he was now in limbo, and he explained it to me. He said, Mum, it's like there's a door open and everything you've ever wanted is behind that door, and you get to the threshold and someone slams it in your face and says, not today. And you have to turn around to hospitals and needles and drug, and he just went, I don't want this anymore. So for a period of 6 months, he tried to kill himself. I took shoelaces away from him, I took belts, all of these things. We were evicted from the hospice. I also took the cannabis away because I wanted to make damn sure that it wasn't a coincidence. And when I took the cannabis away, his blood count halved. And when I gave it back, it doubled. And I did that over a 6 blood test period, so I knew that it was that.
Right. They always love to tell you it wasn't. Well, we haven't done clinical trials.
They would rather say it was a miracle.
We can't say that it works.
Yeah, they call him a miracle. They would rather say it was a miracle than anything else, even now. But so for the next 6 months, the route he chose to kill himself was through starvation. So he would literally refuse to eat anything for 6 months, and he got down to about 24, 25 kilos, which I think is about 4 stones, so like 60 pounds or something. It's not a lot. I showed you a picture of him. He was skeletal. I've never seen anything like it except for on documentaries of Auschwitz and things like that. It was skeletal, and it was the most horrendous 6 months, because cancer's one thing and treatment is one thing. You're almost a passenger to that, but this was now Darrin, and I was trying to encourage Darrin to eat, and he was nah, because I couldn't give him a future to look forward to. So that was devastating. So they wanted to section him, sedate him, and force feed him. I asked for some mental health care and was told that he didn't qualify. So he never saw anybody for that. So he's left to me and my pop psychology trying to get him to eat. And then I got involved with some local cannabis clubs, because obviously I'd seen what cannabis had done. So I started to branch out and look, and I found a very local cannabis club, some lovely people who kept telling me, you need to meet this guy called Jeff Ditchfield. You need to meet Jeff Ditchfield. And I was like, well, who's Jeff? And so I'd Google him. Okay, wow. So a friend of mine said, look, I have a villa in Spain, take him to Spain, take him on holiday, haven't been away for years and years, get away. I managed to talk the hospital into letting me take him, and I said, look, if I take him on holiday and I come back and he's still refusing to eat, I will sign him over to you. I have no choice. I will, whatever you need to do. So we took him to Spain, and that was in July 2014, and met Jeff the following day. Only wanted to say hello to him and thank him for his work, really, but he then looked at Darrin and said, my God, he looks like he's dying. I said, yeah, he kind of is, and he said, I think I can help with this. And I was like, well, because I, again, didn't think about the eating side. It didn't even occur to me about the munchies, I didn't even think.
Of course, yeah.
And he said, look, here's a syringe of oil. It was lemon haze, I believe it was, gram. And took him back to the apartment. And the following day, I gave him a tiny, tiny little bit on a crisp. And I said, Darrin, eat this. And he did. He ate it, because drugs, he'll try anything. I've seen him on ketamine, I've seen him on everything. So cannabis, I had no qualms in giving him this.
Sure.
And sort of half an hour later, I was prepping lunch and he was down by the pool with his brother, and I shouted down, do you want anything to eat? Expecting the same grunt to come back, and Darrin shouted up, make me loads, I'm starving. So straight away, gave him food. He ate for 12 hours. He ate for 12 hours the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and he his life came back into his eyes. He was very, very thin. People in Spain were looking at him like he was dying, but to me, he looked incredible, because I'd seen him when
he'd come so far.
Yeah,
already.
You can see in the pictures in my book, the light in his eyes could just switch back on, and he was back in the room, So we came back after 12 days in Spain. We came back to the UK, and the doctor took me to one side and said, my God, his mental health has improved by 300%. I said, yeah, I know.
It happens when you eat food
Yeah, and you don't want to
start-
die anymore. Yeah, you know. And she said, he doesn't want to die. I said, I know. And she said, he's put on 4 kilos. I said, I know. And she said, the holiday did him the world of good. I went, yes, it was the holiday. Yes, we'll leave it.
They'll accept that.
They'll accept that. Yeah, Sunsea and, you know, they'll accept that. And again, I had to stay quiet because I was terrified of social services coming in taking my children. Not only would Darrin, you know, be taken into care, but he'd lose the one thing that now clearly was working for him again. You know, cannabis now, this is the second time cannabis has brought him back from the brink. And so he's been on oil every single day since July 2014. Every day without fail, 150 milligrams. Is it micrograms or milligrams? Milligrams. 150 milligrams every day. And the things I have seen since that, so it was a miracle the first instance. The second time was a miracle in my eyes. What has happened since is miraculous. His hand, he can feel, only the tips of his fingers he can't feel. About 2 weeks after we came back from Spain, he started saying, Mum, my hand's hurting. I said, your hand can't hurt me, you have no nerves, your hand can't hurt. I'm telling you, Mum, he said, it's like electric shocks going down my fingers. It's so painful.
Rewiring the nerves.
Neurogenesis was rebuilding neural pathways in his hands for around the damage. And I say now he has problems. He has to pick things up like this, but he has full range of movement. He wants to be a chef. It's incredible, you know. And I literally slap his hand on his oncologist's desk and go, explain that. I can't. I said, well, I can. No, I don't want to hear. He had avascular necrosis in his right femur, which was basically an inch of bone at the end of his femur, which was dead, necrotic, and that was due to steroid use while he was growing. The blood couldn't get to the bone, so it died. And they told me that within 5 years he would need a knee replacement if he were to survive, because this is irreparable. You can't repair dead bone, right? So I think it was about 6 or 9 months ago now. He had an MRI scan because his left leg is very twisted. The bones are physically deformed, so he had an MRI scan. And I sat in the oncologist's office and he said, I believe you were under the impression that Darrin had avascular necrosis. And I said, no, I wasn't under the impression. I have the scans. Would you like to see them? Because I believe, you must have been under the impression. I said, well, you're going to tell me it's gone? And he said, well, yes, but that's impossible. And I said, well, clearly it's not, because it's happened. And he said, well, I don't see this in any of my other patients. And I said, none of your other patients are on cannabis. And he said, I knew you'd say that word. And I said, well, I'm going to keep saying it because it's the only reason why my son's still alive. And you've got 60 people out there that could benefit from it, and you'd rather put your fingers in your ears. I said, this is happening. The avascular necrosis is gone. The neurectomy, it's been fixed. He's now 6 years post his last transplant, almost 6 years post his last transplant. So they are saying that he should have cataracts by now. He should have a heart murmur at least. He should have issues with his internal organs, because the amount of radiotherapy and chemotherapy that they blast him with, he should be having now, it's called long-term side effects.
Right.
If you live longer than 5 years, because that's all they go for is 5 years, if you get past the 5-year mark, they then start looking for these long-term side effects. So Darren's going in regularly, and there's nothing. There's not even a sign of any long-term side effects, and they are bamboozled. They can't understand. And he sits there and goes, cannabis, you know, and he's had it written on all of his medical records. He stood over his oncologist and said, I want you to write what I did and what I was taking and what I'm taking now, because I'm still taking it. I want it on my notes that I don't take any of the 4 pharmaceutical drugs that I'm supposed to take for life. I don't take any of them. He's had maybe 2 colds in the last 5 years. He's been, honestly, he's one of the most healthiest people I know, and he's supposed to be infertile. So I think next month he's going for fertility, because he's 20 this year.
Wow.
He's going to be 20 in December. So he's gone for a fertility test because he wants to know. And I said, yeah, don't rest on your laurels with that. I can guarantee if anybody, you know, he's going to end up having millions of children, you know. It's like, but it's just been
It's
incredible.
just night and day from it doesn't help from my perspective when you have the word harm in the first 5 letters of the word pharmaceutical.
Yes.
You know, that's a strange thing to have that word harm of all the words you could have in the word that's supposed to represent medicine.
Yeah.
And to think of all of the things that just kept going wrong as they continued to go down that road. I mean, just the story that you told, that is so incredible. And then you just, you know, cannabis truly is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the fact that there are people in this world that would rather, like you said, put their fingers in their ears and not hear it, it's criminal.
Yeah, it is.
You know, it's a criminal
negligence.
thing.
It is absolutely
it's beyond negligence.
Yeah.
It's sickening
Yeah.
to allow parents and the loved ones of these sick people and the sick people themselves to go through that and just when it's how can we not use the plant-based medicines as the first line of defense? Why do we always have to wait till 3 days before death?
Yeah.
And I know in the UK, you know, like I see what's going on there. And the UK it's not good with cannabis.
No.
You know, what they're doing and the way, I mean, this other little guy who took his medicine away at the border, like this is like what you would expect a demon to do if you ever came across a demon.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like,
satanical.
oh, okay, so that's, it's completely just
really
evil.
Yeah.
Evil. Oh, it must be a miracle. No, you were under the impression.
Yeah.
It's like,
and this is exactly why I feel that I do what I do now, is that obviously since all those followers that Darrin had, they all saw this miracle, and then I started to get inundated with people who wanted the same miracle, and so I tell them what I did, and many of them would say, "Oh no, I can't do that; it's illegal," and which is sad, but I respected that. And so for the last 5 years, because I wrote a book and I've been on television and I've been very open and out about this. I've been in Parliament. I've told the Chief of Police what I do. I've told MPs what I do. I was arrested outside Parliament not long ago, protesting. I was dressed as a suffragette as well, so it was a public. I didn't intend to get arrested, but it just happens. We make very good photos, me in cuffs, dressed as a suffragette. You know, 100 years later, fighting for the right to give my child cannabis now. And 100 years ago, I couldn't vote, but I could give my child cannabis, and the tables have turned, right? So now I'm inundated with people who come to me again at the end of their life. It's such a shame that it's usually at the end of their life. But so now I've seen this plant perform miracles hundreds and hundreds of times since then. Hundreds of people have come off pharmaceutical drugs and onto cannabis because they've come to me, and so now I will now introduce JJ. JJ is she's my right hand lady. We've known each other for a few years. We've both been working in cannabis, but it came a very natural, organic join between a pairing, really between us, that the people come to me. I do a lot of consulting. I talk them through cannabis, and because many of the people have never touched cannabis in their life when they come to me too, right? So sure. I'm giving them their first high. I'm helping them. I'm talking them through, and then JJ mixes up the oils to the preparations, to the ratios that we need. She sources the oils. We make sure that we know where it's come from. So JJ has very good content. Absolutely, our standards are so high because this is medicine. Right. This is not a joke. Yeah. If there's alcohol in there that's not supposed to be in there, or if there's contamination, or we don't know what the profile is, every single piece, every tincture that goes to us is tested, so we know exactly the profile. Because it's the only way that you can administer medicine properly, when you know what's in it. Yeah. So we have this little relationship going where we work very, very well together, and it's beautiful. And I couldn't do what I do without JJ. You know, she's been a godsend to me. We can now help far more people than just me on my own. Yeah. You know, so we've got other people. We're starting to get other people on board, but it's very difficult because, like I said, our standards are so high that not many people can meet those standards, unfortunately. I have a lot of people saying, "Oh, I have a load of oil here. Do you want me to? Can you get rid of it through me? I'll help you." And I say, "Well, is it tested?" "Oh no." "Well, I'll get some tested." "Oh yeah, but by the time the test comes back, it'll all be sold. So you either have it now or not." I said, "Well, I'll have it not at all then. Thank you very much."
Yeah, of course.
I'm not doing that. I'm not peddling you all. So that makes it difficult. We often have people sitting waiting for test results to come back, and we will not release that oil until test results have come back. So we are very stringent like that. But yeah, it's incredible. And actually, in the UK, although things aren't good, on the public side of things, public opinion is very good.
Excellent.
The public before I wrote my book, while I was writing my book, before I decided to publish it, I used to look at public opinion and whether or not I would be safe coming out as a mother giving my child an illicit drug, because I was watching people be very, very angry about mothers over in America who were giving their children cannabis illegally. "Oh, it's just for potheads, and why are you giving that to a child? And doctors know what they're doing." And it was very much that kind of rhetoric, and it scared me too much to come out. So I wrote my book and I left it a few years. Then I looked at public opinion again, and it had changed dramatically to, well, obviously we know that cannabis works. You know, there was more of those comments, so I felt safe. So I came out, went on the television. I was one of the first, well, I was the first person to ever go on television and admit to breaking the law and actually giving...
Yeah, I like that interview.
Yeah. There are a lot of other mothers in the UK who really do, their children need to have cannabis right now, and they're begging the government to give them what they need, but I wasn't going to beg to be a lawful customer. My son's health was their paramount, you know. So I was the first one to come out on the television and say that I actually broken the law.
There's a lot of stigma.
Yeah, oh my God, there was absolutely...
And fear.
Yeah, there was a lot of stigma and a lot of fear. And even now, there's a lot of stigma and a lot of fear that are stopping these parents from embarking on this. But since going on the television, I've watched public opinion again now sway. And we are now at a point where 99% of people, on comments especially, are... well, yes, cannabis works. My nan uses it, or my, you know, even if they are already talking about CBD oil, you know, there's the mass confusion at the moment with CBD oil in the UK. And
of course, because there's snake oil salesmen, and there's all sorts of disinformation about it.
There's a lot of misunderstanding about CBD.
Sure, and the media push out CBD oil as cannabis oil cure. The media have used the word cure in the same sentence as CBD. So we're fighting against the misinformation, the propaganda, the reefer madness, everything that's going on. But most people now, you know, if you were to tell them, well, I gave my son cannabis, they go, wow, that's amazing, that's great, that's good for you, for you, you know. So things have really changed. We just need the government to... But the government are doing what they're doing. They're lining their ducks up in a row so that they can be personally profiting from this. It's not about... You know, many people in the UK will say, well, look at America, look how much money they've made, that they've paid... Colorado have paid for schools, healthcare, this and the other. That would be great, but unfortunately in the UK our government don't care about how much money they can put in the public purse. They only care about what can go in their pockets. And when you've got our Prime Minister whose husband is the biggest investor into GW Pharmaceutical, and our Drugs Minister whose husband owns the land that 220 tonnes of skunk is grown on every year in the UK, and yet it has no medicinal benefit and we're not allowed to have access to it. Mass hypocrisy.
Well, it makes you psychotic. That's the UK's media for the last 15 years, but we'll be able to sell it as a medicine and reap the benefits.
Yours is bad.
So your son must be absolutely blown away and inspired by how his experience has led you guys down this journey now of helping all of these other people. What does he think of that? Like, he must see that.
He sees it, but I think he's quite nonchalant about it. Actually, he's very. Darrin lives in the moment.
Yeah.
And
I bet he does.
He always has. He was diagnosed with autism, 8 years old, and he also has Tourette's syndrome. So he's also seen that be treated very well with cannabis. You can tell when he hasn't had his oil for a little while because the autistic traits start coming out, and you see it again with him. But so he is, although he's very proud of me, I'm sure I say that because he's never told me, so I have to presume that he is. But this is Darrin. I know Darrin. I don't expect anything like that from him. But I know that he must be proud in what I'm doing, that I'm going on and helping other people. He knows now that he comes second to cannabis. He knows that, and so does my other son, because this is far bigger than them. Darrin has put me on a journey. And now his journey is to carry on whatever he wants to do with his life. This is now my journey, and he has firmly put me on, and he knows that. So he's quite happy to come second to cannabis because he knows how important it is to me and to him. It's you know, the only reason why he's still breathing. So.
Well, I'm very glad to be able to share your story to my audience and to try and, like I said earlier, I would love to get you onto Hash Church. We can try to raise some money for your group. You know. Generally in the story, in the time when we're online and we're talking, that's when really people are the most susceptible to be able to just hit that donation button, and people want to be able to help, especially when they hear a story that's so incredibly inspirational like this one. It's just like, what a journey. This was how many years?
From 2010 until 2014, 15. So 4.5, 5 years.
And when you get taken to a place with your child where you actually want them to die, and where a child has been through so much that at 14 years old they want to die, you know, and then cannabis turns it all around completely. Why isn't this available for everybody? That's what drives us to carry on, really. I mean, Callie's experience, she knows exactly how it is for a mum to be in that situation where you actually want to release your child through death. Seems to be the only release, and then along comes cannabis.
Yeah. Well, so for people who are watching right now, how can they find you guys? What are the social media addresses, websites, the book titles? Where can they find all this information about you guys?
So on Instagram, I'm the_cannabis_activist. JJ is at Ganja Nanja, and
I like it.
and then I'm on Facebook as Callie Blackwell. You can find me there. I have a public page which I answer many emails through to there. I have a public page too, it's my normal one, just Callie Blackwell. I have a website, callieblackwell.co.uk. I don't get to update that very often, unfortunately, so it's more like a holding page, but you can be directed to all of my social media pages. And I have a donate page on there as well, which goes straight through to my PayPal, which I don't expect people to donate, but if they want to, then it will directly go to help, because this is a completely not-for-profit thing. We don't make any money on top of what we do.
No, because you have a soul.
Yeah, because I can't morally take. Thank you very much.
We can't make money from sick people.
I can't morally make money from someone that I know how that feels.
Not from the journey that you just took.
I know how that feels, and I don't want to put financial burden on top of that as well.
I mean, not to say that, hey, we do need companies that are going to come out and make it accessible on a mass scale, and those companies will require to make profits so they can continue on, but it doesn't have to be this pharmaceutical model where it's 10,000 times the price, and it's only our product because it's patented and it's some synthetic version. Yeah.
And like I say, that I was saying someone, Epidiolex, which is the GW pharmaceutical CBD oil that they brought out in November, of the 4 children who have been lucky enough to be prescribed it in the UK, 3 of them now have gone completely backwards. In fact, have gone worse than they were ever. They're literally like zombies. And it seems to be I think it's in the insert of the Epidiolex, it says about the strawberry flavouring causes severe degeneration of one of the main nerves.
So the delivery system that they managed to patent, because they can't actually patent cannabis itself, is damaging the children. And yet,
because out of greed, they want to control it.
Well, there has to be side effects, right? There has to be repeat custom, otherwise a drugs company goes out of business. If there's no repeat custom, then the drugs company will go out. It's business sense. If you look at it on a business sense, it makes no sense to make something that actually works. Otherwise, that's the end of their business.
It reminds me of this young girl from Sweden who's been standing up for the environment. Greta, I believe her name is. She went
14,
and slapped the UN, the WHO and the UN. She just was like, "You guys aren't mature enough to take care of the planet."
Yeah, leave it to us.
Yeah, exactly. But she had a quote, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, I'll have to remember. It was a very powerful quote. And it was in regards to what we were just talking about right now, but I've lost it.
It'll come to you.
Yeah.
Later on, you'll just shout it out.
Listen, I wish I could sit here with you guys all day. I love the vibes. I love what you guys are doing. I think it's extremely important. It's some of the most important civil disobedience that's going on this planet right now. So really, I can't say enough good about what you're both doing, and continue to do this journey, and no matter how hard they come at you, never stop.
We can't
Never stop. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us, and this is we're going to be staying in touch for certain.
Yeah, for sure.
And absolutely amazing work, amazing women. You guys are doing the really serious good work out there.
Thank you very much. And I'm very honoured to even be invited to talk to you. And
me too.
It's an honour.
No, this will be the first of many conversations that we have.
Yeah, for sure.
So thanks a lot, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you.